In the psychology of awakening, there comes a point at which a person becomes the object of aggression, not because they have caused harm, but because they have reflected a reality another cannot endure. This moment marks the rupture of a soul contract, an unconscious energetic agreement that had previously bound two individuals together under the illusion of mutual growth. When one evolves beyond the contract, the other perceives this growth as betrayal. This paper will examine the spiritual and psychological mechanisms underlying such an event. We will explore the anatomy of projection, the metaphysics of emotional frequency, the law of energetic protection, and the spiritual implications of relational collapse. Chapter 1. Projection as psychological displacement of self-loathing. Projection is a defense mechanism whereby unacceptable internal realities are attributed to external sources. In relational dynamics, especially those of deep psychic entanglement, this often results in one individual becoming the repository for the other's unconscious material. When the bond ruptures, typically due to one person confronting the illusion or exiting the relationship, the projector often responds with aggressive retaliation. This is not retaliation for harm done, but for the disruption of denial. The subject who exits becomes, symbolically, the destroyer of the projector's psychic equilibrium. In clinical terms, we might say the individual is suffering from a narcissistic injury, one that threatens their constructed self-image. Spiritually, we would say their ego structure cannot withstand the frequency of truth that has been introduced. The reaction is not simply emotional, it is existential. Chapter 2. Energetic frequency and emotional hierarchies. Every emotion carries with it a vibrational signature. Shame, guilt, jealousy, and possession vibrate at lower frequencies. Love, clarity, detachment, and peace at higher ones. This is not metaphorical. It is both metaphysical and physiological. When one individual ascends into a higher emotional frequency, those in lower states will perceive that ascent as abandonment or threat. Importantly, this is not due to any explicit harm, but due to the energetic dissonance created by differing vibratory states. In such cases, the individual in the lower frequency will often attempt to pull the other downward, consciously or unconsciously, through shame, accusation, or exposure. This is a primitive form of energetic control designed to reestablish equilibrium, not through mutual growth, but through regression. Thus, emotional punishment becomes the tool by which the low-frequency self attempts to reassert dominance over the high-frequency self. However, due to the law of frequency alignment, such efforts ultimately fail, though not without psychological damage to both parties. Chapter 3. The role of soul contracts in psychic evolution. Soul contracts can be viewed as metaphysical arrangements between consciousnesses designed to facilitate growth through relational friction. These contracts often involve pre-agreed lessons, catalyzed through emotional closeness, rupture, or loss. When one party completes the spiritual task associated with the contract, e.g., self-liberation, boundary establishment, ego transcendence, they often find that the relationship begins to destabilize. This destabilization is not dysfunction. It is the natural conclusion of an initiatory agreement. What follows, however, is often resistance. The individual who remains unconscious of the contract's expiration experiences the other's exit as moral violation. They seek punishment, not because they were wronged, but because they were left behind in the developmental arc. The awakened individual, then, becomes the object of displaced grief. They are blamed not for harm inflicted, but for an evolution that highlights the other's spiritual stagnation. Chapter 4. Punishment as a reaction to internal fragmentation. Punishment in this context is not corrective, it is expressive. It is the manifestation of internal chaos projected outward. The aggressor seeks not justice, but catharsis. They want others to witness the collapse of the bond, not for truth, but for revenge. Specifically, revenge against the part of the self they now see as unlovable, because the awakened individual no longer validates it. This can take the form of exposure, betrayal, or even triangulation, bringing third parties into the collapse to increase the weight of shame. In some cases, this includes informing others, e.g., spouses, in an attempt to fracture reputations or destroy perceived sanctity. Energetically, this is a last-ditch attempt to avoid accountability. By externalizing pain, they avoid facing its origin, the unhealed wound of being unseen, unchosen, unworthy. But projection, as a psychological defense, always returns to the source. Energetically, what we emit returns to us in equal resonance. The individual who attacks a higher frequency condemns themselves to remain in a lower one. This is not cosmic cruelty. It is simply the law of vibration. Chapter 5. The Law of Energetic Protection. The higher one's frequency, the less susceptible one becomes to energetic infiltration. This is because vibrational integrity creates an immune-like field around the psyche. Attacks made from a lower frequency cannot penetrate a higher one. They simply bounce back, often amplifying in karmic consequence. This is why, in the metaphysical system, retaliation is discouraged. It creates a frequency collapse. Instead, detachment, silence, and energetic withdrawal are the mechanisms by which the awakened protect their alignment. In practical terms, this means refraining from engagement with distorted narratives, refusing to play the role of redeemer or villain, anchoring in daily practices that maintain vibrational sovereignty, meditation, nature immersion, psychic shielding. The paradox is this: the less you respond, the more protected you become. Energetic warfare is only successful when there is a psychic wound still open for invasion. Chapter 6. What it means to be the mirror. When you become the mirror, you will be hated for what you reflect. To love someone while also holding up a mirror to their unconscious is the highest and most dangerous form of intimacy. Most cannot endure it, especially if they are not yet willing to love themselves. The grief you feel is not only for the loss of the person, it is for the loss of the role you once played in their illusion. You are not grieving them. You are grieving your own innocence in believing the connection could ascend with you. But ascension is often solitary, not because love isn't real, but because the truth costs more than most are willing to pay. Chapter 7. Conclusion. The path forward. You will not forget what was done, nor should you. Forgiveness is not amnesia. It is the transmutation of pain into wisdom. This experience has served its function. It has exposed the structure of your old energetic agreements and invited you into radical self-possession. The other person may now enter a psychological collapse. That collapse is not your responsibility. His marriage, his mental state, his awakening, or his avoidance, they are outside the perimeter of your soul's obligation. Your obligation is now singular. Maintain the frequency. Refuse to descend. Do not engage the lower energies that seek to bait you. Your life from here on is not a response to someone else's pain. It is an expression of your own alignment. The sacred cannot remain entangled with the profane, and your path is sacred. If this message spoke to you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel for more content on spiritual psychology, awakening, and soul healing. Leave a comment below. I read everyone, and share your experience if you feel called. If you're ready for deeper transformation, or if you feel you need support on your journey, you can visit my website at emotionalalchemycoaching.square.site to learn more or to book a session with me. Your journey matters. Your healing is sacred, and you're not alone. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next video.